Hi again everyone, it's Carol from the Crafty Emporium. Well, I hope you enjoyed yesterday's first stages of the tutorial for making the journal. As I said yesterday, I'm going to explain today a little bit about sort of dyeing your papers and getting them sort of prepared for your journal. And as I showed you yesterday, you can use coffee, you can use tea, you can use fruit tea. It doesn't just have to be your normal builder's merchant's tea. You can use avocado, you can use vegetables, so you can use the red skin of your onions. Really, it's a case of go and have a play. I also said yesterday that I'm not going to demonstrate this as well because there's enough videos out there on YouTube explaining how to coffee dye your paper, and it also varies as well on where you live. If you live somewhere hot, you won't need to use your oven to dry your papers because you could actually dry them outside or dry them in your living room or wherever it is you do your baking of papers. If you're living somewhere where it's a bit more damp, so like here in Britain, it rains a lot, so it's not always sort of available to go and hang them up outside or whatever, so they have to be dried in the oven. The oven can dry them out quite a lot, so they end up very, very crinkly. And that's the nice thing about when, I don't know what it is about us, that peoples that make journals, but we love that crinkly sound, the crinkly sound of the baked paper, the crinkly sound of glassine bags. There's just something really, ooh, and the texture as well when you touch it. Anyway, I digress. So I'm not going to do a demonstration on how you dye your papers. All I can say is give it a go. Have a play, have fun, because that's the reason why we do our crafts, is we enjoy creating stuff. And so the best way forward with this is just to play and give it a go. If it doesn't work, re-dye the paper with something else, paint over the top of it, whatever, but have a play. Anyway, so coffee. Use a cheap coffee. It doesn't have to be an expensive one, and the more coffee you add to the water, obviously the stronger it's going to be in terms of its colour and also in terms of the smell as well. So if you don't like coffee smell, then I'll suggest that you use tea. So coffee will give the paper a much darker colour and a very strong scent as well. All right, so I'm going to put that to one side. Then you could use tea bags. So you just dunk your tea bags in some water, let it steep for a bit, and then you dunk your papers in that, and it will end up being a much lighter colour, and it has a very different fragrance as well when it dries out. And as I say, you can try fruit tea bags as well. So again, just have a play and experiment. The next one then is your avocados. This is the other most popular, and one of the things that makes it better with an avocado is, can you see how dark this skin is? So you tend to get either green avocados or this very dark brown, almost black colour, and it's the darker skinned avocados that work better, and basically it turns your water pink, surprisingly. Ooh, it's trying to escape. Don't worry, I'm not going to cook you. No. So the darker the skin on your avocado, the better the colour will turn out, the brighter it will turn out. Now, the other thing that I mentioned as well was eyeshadow. And I've got my pot stacked here with a selection of eyeshadows in here. These I got from my local boys' shop. They were £1 a pot, and I took the pots all apart. And if I, very, very carefully, because it goes everywhere. If I open that up, can you see the powder in there, the eyeshadow powder? Can you see it's got a little bit of a sparkle to it? Well, if you add that powder to your coffee dye, to your tea dye, bearing in mind that it's a powder, it's not going to dissolve. It's not like adding sugar to hot water and it all dissolves. This will not dissolve, but it does spread it about quite a bit, so that you end up getting sparkly paper. and I'll show you some in a moment. So I've got a variety of different colours here. So I would add the pink one to my avocado, and this, what's it called, honeysuckle eyeshadow or gold eyeshadow, or oh, that brown one hasn't got a name, or the coppery brown one to coffee or tea. Purple, just to add a little bit different somewhere along the line, I suppose. But if you add a tiny bit of this to your liquid that you're going to dunk your paper in, it adds sparkle to it. So how do we go about making it? So what you do is you get a few tea bags and you have a pot or whatever, and cover them in boiling water. Doesn't matter how much, obviously the more water you put in, the weaker the solution's going to be. The more tea bags you add, the darker it's going to be, and the same with coffee as well. So all you're doing is adding hot water and then letting it cool down, because your fingers are going to go in there. So you don't want it, you don't want to immerse your fingers in that hot water, you burn yourself. And with the avocado, you remove the flesh and you boil up the skin, but watch it, because the amount of times that I've been sat in my craft room and gone, what's that smell? And then realised that the water's boiled away and I'm left with cooking skin of avocado. So just watch it. You only need to boil it sort of just on a low heat for a while, and just watch it until it turns the right sort of shade of pink that you're looking for. So the coffee and the tea is the same thing. You add water to a pot, add your coffee or add your tea or whichever tea bags you're using, wait for it to cool down a little and then start dipping your papers. The avocado, you boil the skin, then you would need to drain it through a piece of muslin or cotton or calico so that you're removing the flesh, and then you're left with just the liquid. And I can actually show you. Oh, sorry, got my stand then. So this is some avocado juice. I've got these pots, these airtight containers. Now it doesn't last for long, so you do need to store it in the fridge once you've boiled it up. But can you see sort of, I hope you can see what sort of shade of pink it looks. What I'm looking at now looks kind of brown, but it is sort of pinky. But that's what I store my liquid in, and then I put it in the fridge. So that's the sort of thing that the avocado does. But then what I would do then is, once I put it in my pot, and I'm going to show you, I use these meat tins, and they sell them in Asda. Now I don't normally use my square one, I normally use a rectangular one, but I knew the rectangular one wouldn't fit in frame, and I would normally make up a bigger batch of liquid than this, because I tend to dye quite a lot of coffee papers all in one go. So I've got some coffee in there with water, or I would tip my avocado juice into there, and then I would add a little pinch, a couple of little pinches of this into that liquid. Well, you can see the reflection of my lamp, look. I don't know, I can't cover it over. Oh, there's my hand. There you go. So yeah, so I would put that powder into there. Now, what makes this sparkly is it's called mica powder, M-I-C-A, and that's what gives it the sparkle, mica. So if you go and buy any makeup and have a look at the ingredients on the box and it says mica, you know it's going to be a bit sparkly. So if you buy a compact and it's solid, break it all up into little powder, into a pot. But as I say, mind, because it will go everywhere and it gets all over your fingers and everything becomes sparkly. But I add a tiny bit of that to that, okay, and it makes it sparkly. Now, I'm just going to move that out of the way for just a sec. I'm going to bring you back in a minute because I want to show you. I've undone this ready. I want to show you this, look. So that was my white copy paper beforehand. And that's it, tea dyed. Alright. And then that's it, done with the avocado. So you can see how pink it is in comparison. It's sort of a Yeah, it's not a bright pink, it's a subtle pink. And then on this one, if I can catch the light on it just right, you might be able to just see some of the sparkle on there. And that's where I've added the mica powder to the avocado juice. Right, tea dyed. Some more sparkly there, look. Right, so you get the gist of what it looks like. And then in this one, I used coffee dyed paper. And I've done something a bit different with this paper, but I'll come to that in a moment. So you can see the difference, look, between the tea dyed and the coffee dyed. You can see it comes out a much darker. All right. So once you've dipped your paper in your pot, and you don't need to leave it in there, you can dip it straight in and out. Oh, and wear gloves as well if you can, because it dyes your fingers. And you'll have coffee dyed fingers and nails for ages. Sometimes I do videos afterwards and I see my nails and I think, oh, they must think I've got disgustingly dirty nails, and it's not, it's coffee. But basically you just dip your paper in, take it out. Now what I tend to do is, because I cook mine in the oven, I have a little system set up where I've got my pot on the side. I've got several sheets of this, which is, if I spin it the right way around, you might be able to see, my greaseproof paper. So I just pull out 3 or 4 sheets of greaseproof paper. I turn my oven on to, mine's a fan assisted oven, and I turn it up to 200 degrees, let it warm, turn it down just a touch to maybe 180 so that it's all nice and warm. Production line, that's the word I was looking for. So I dunk my paper into my coffee. I make sure that the whole paper is immersed in the liquid, and then I carefully lift it up, let it drip dry a little bit, and then lay it onto my greaseproof paper, put that in the oven. Do my next piece of paper, drip dry it, lay it on my greaseproof paper, put it in the oven. Next one, because I've got 3 shells. So I do that 3 times. By the time I've done round about the 3rd one, I'm not far off ready to pull the top one out and replace it with a fresh piece. Now, some people stack their sheets. They will put a sort of 4 or 5 sheets in, all in one go, stacked on top of each other. Me personally, I don't like that, because I find that the papers on top of the previous layers start to absorb the coffee out of the other papers, and it also can leave marks on there, and I don't like that, but that's just purely personal choice. And then I make a stack of them, the dried versions, over on my table. So I drip there, on there, oven, out, stack, dip, drip, on there, oven, stack, and I just have a little production line going. Now I can spend half a day to a full day just coffee dyeing, but that's because I coffee dye quite a lot of my papers. So I'm talking 50, 100, 150 pages at a time, so that I've got a collection, which I'm going to show you now, because there are other things that you can do apart from just dyeing. So I have a pouch here, one of these, got these from Poundland, and I find that because I'm coffee and tea dyeing so many, by the time I've put them in here and push the button shut, it sort of acts as a bit of a vacuum, so it also helps to flatten out my paper a little bit. Now some people like to iron their paper. Again, that is entirely up to you, purely personal preference, and the best thing to do is just give it a go and see how you feel. But obviously you would need to do that with a dry iron, not with it on steam. Okay, so that's my little pouch of tea. That's my pouch of avocado. Now I'm ready to start dyeing some more, and my mum's coming up later on today, and so I'm going to get her to help me. She's going to love me. I'm going to get her to help me to do a load of coffee and tea dyeing and avocado dyed papers, because I'm running a little bit short. So that's my tea, that's my avocado. that's my coffee dyed. I've got quite a few in there, look. It's quite packed. But I need some plain ones because they're my fancy ones. And then I've got some coffee dyed card because I sometimes like to do coffee dyed tags. And so obviously if I'm doing a tag, I need a piece of card. So those are my 4 main pouches. Now, the other thing that you can do, let me just push them to one side. I'm running out of space. There we go, found a space. The other thing that you can do is you can lay lace on top of your paper. Put your coffee, get a paintbrush this time and paint the coffee or tea or avocado over the top of your lace. Put another piece then on top so that it also then does an imprint of it as well. But again, have a play. So those are 2 different types of laces that I've used on top to get that impression. And that's another piece of lace. In fact, that was 2 pieces of lace that I laid side by side. And then the other thing that you can do is, you know, a pizza pan with the circle dots thing on for aeration. Yeah, well, if you stack your coffee paper, so you dip your coffee dyed paper, drip it, and then lay it on one of those circular or rectangular tins with the holes in, that's what it does. So it prints it then with the holes. And then the other thing that you can do is this one here. This one was a paper doily. And so that was it. That was my paper doily. So I dipped my paper into the coffee. So this is the coffee dyed bit here. And then I placed this on top. Just sort of pressed it a little. Sometimes I use a bit of a brush to just smooth it down so that I'm spreading coffee beyond, so that this also becomes darker all around the outer edge. Paint it with my brush, pop that all in the oven all at the same time. And then because this dries, this then lifts off, but it leaves an imprint of the doily underneath there. But it also means then as well that if you're creating a vintage style journal, you've also now got a doily, which if you fold that in half and wrap that around a page, you've now got a really nice lacy looking piece of paper as well that can go in your journal too. And I've also done it in the past with, you know, with circular doilies as well. It doesn't have to just be oval. Any kind of doilies, you can lay several. If you've got small doilies, lay several on there. But as I say, there's lots of videos out there showing you how to do coffee dyed paper. So I'm going to put the link for a couple of those in the description box below, so please have a look at those. I'm going to put up Mrs. Coggs and Crafty Irina, I think was the other lady that did it as well. And I'm going to put the links up for those so that you can actually go and physically watch them dunking paper, dripping it, laying it out, putting it in the oven, so that you can see how they do that. Now, one of the other papers that a few of the other papers that I mentioned were things like graph paper, so you could dunk that in your coffee or your tea as well. Music paper, as you can see, this one's already got the colouring to it, and that's because it's a vintage paper, so it's naturally turned that colour over time. With printed papers, and especially if you've printed your own off, if you've bought a digital kit, you need to be just a little bit careful, because depending on the ink that was used to print the image, if I printed this on with my inkjet printer, I haven't, but if I had, and then I went and dunked that in the coffee, my ink would just run. So you would then print on the coffee dyed paper afterwards. One of the problems with coffee dyed paper and putting it through the printer is because you have put it in the oven, it sends the edge of the paper very brittle and crinkly. So you may find that just trimming off the very outer edge of your paper and then running it through your printer, you might find it goes through a little bit easier. But please be careful, just put one sheet in at a time rather than putting a stack of 10 in, and run that one through just to see if it's going to work. And then if it does work, again, just put them in one at a time to print it off. Something like this, though, where it's from a book, the ink has been applied to the paper in a very, very different manner, and so therefore it's fine if you want to dunk those in coffee. But sometimes it's just nice to have a variety of different coloured papers in there. You could also use dictionary papers and do the same with those. And one thing I forgot to mention yesterday was colouring pages as well from books. So you could immerse that in the coffee as well and have a go at doing that. So my tutorial for today, so far, there's going to be another one later on, is to go and have a play with coffee, tea, mica powder, avocado, whichever floats your boat. You might have a go at all of them. Have a go at doing a variety of different papers, dunking them, cooking them, drying them, however you see fit, and just see what you come up with. For this particular journal, you will need round about 7, 8, 9 pieces of paper for your pages. So just bear that in mind when you have a go at doing your coffee dyeing. Of course, you don't have to do coffee dyeing at all. You might decide that you actually want white paper, or even a coloured sheet of paper in there. Oh, that's the point. Yeah, bear with me. So, just that, I won't be a sec. There. So you could use, there we go. So you could use a coloured piece of paper. Now that in itself is a little bit boring, but what you could do is immerse it in water and then put it in the oven, and it will have that more crinkly effect, and it will have that, hang on, can you hear that sound? Now listen to this one. It's not the same kind of sound, is it? That's definitely got a more crinkly sound. So you could actually immerse that in water. You're not dyeing it, it's already coloured. But to give it the crinkle effect, pop it in the oven and dry it out a little bit, and you'll have the crinkly effect. Okay, have I rattled on enough now? Oh no, one other thing. See, I know what to forget something. Lace. We can add lace to the edges of your pages. And so what you can do is, if you get something like a white lace, but you're putting it all on your coffee dyed papers and you want it to have the vintage look, there's no reason why you can't coffee dye your lace as well. It works better with cotton lace than it does with nylon lace. But don't pop it in the oven though. So leave it somewhere on a windowsill, on top of a tea towel to dry, or put it on top of a radiator. Although with the weather the way it is this bank holiday weekend, you could actually put it outside and leave it to dry naturally. And that will also turn brown as well. It will pick up the colour of the brown if you're using coffee or tea, pink if you're using avocado. Food colouring is another one that you can add to water to dye your papers. So I've prattled on enough. Go and have a play. And you see these bits? That's the bit that I would put in the oven. Don't throw it away. We can use those. Right, I'm off. See you later and have fun. See ya. Bye.